Sometimes the most beautiful symbols sit atop the ugliest truths. You ever stand in front of the Gateway Arch in St. Louis? It's massive. When we were kids in high school, they took us there on a class trip from Kansas City. We stayed in the Embassy Suites and we ate at the Spaghetti Factory. We finally made it to the skyline the next day, and it was awesome. Impressive. The way it curves into the sky like a silver promise. It's supposed to represent freedom, expansion, and the courage to go west. But what if I told you it also represents erasure? That beneath its shining surface lies a buried history of families displaced, homes destroyed, and communities silenced, all in the name of progress. Welcome to That Doesn't Make Sense. I'm Michael Porter, and today we're digging deep beneath the arch to uncover the truth about what was there before it and why no one ever talks about it. Long before the Gateway Arch was even a blueprint, the land along the St. Louis Riverfront was alive. It was crowded, bustling, a little chaotic, but full of history, black businesses, immigrant families, jazz clubs, corner stores, barbershops, and homes. They called it blighted, but let's be real. What they meant was, it was poor, it was black, and it didn't fit the postcard image the city wanted to project. In 1933, Bernard F. Dickman began rallying behind the idea proposed behind attorney Luther Eli Smith to revitalize the area with a monument to westward expansion. By the 1940s, under city planner Harlan Bartholomew, more than 40 city blocks were condemned, bulldozed, erased. Nearly 290 businesses, black-owned barbershops, corner stores, produce stalls, gone. William Robertson, a black barber entrepreneur in the 1930s, U.S. Grant Taze, a African-American barber in the 1930s, and also Albert White, William Johnson, James P. Thomas, and the Clamorgan family, all part of the thriving working class economy here, were forced out. With all those folks cleared out for the arch, many were relocated north into a brand new housing development called Pruitt, Igoe. Built between 1954 and 1956, it was designed by Minoru Yamasaki, the same architect who would later design the World Trade Center. 33 towers, 11 stories each, modern design, bright white concrete, and a trap. It was underfunded, poorly maintained, segregated. It had skip-stop elevators that forced residents on dangerous stairwells. Trash piled up. Plumbing failed. The winters were cold and the summers were broiling. And then came the military test. Spraying zinc cadmium sulfate across the rooftops without consent. By 1972, demolition began. It was televised like it was a football game. And by 1976, all the towers were gone. The official story, architectural failure. The truth, a failure of policy. Morality, and care. Mill Creek Valley was one of the largest black neighborhoods in St. Louis, home to over 20,000 people by the mid-20th century. It was full of churches, schools, and thriving businesses. Mill Creek Valley got its name from the stream that once ran through Midtown St. Louis. By the early 1900s, it was home to thousands of black families who had fled the South. It stretched over 450 acres. In 1954, Mayor Raymond R. Tucker campaigned a $110 million bond issue. $10 million of that was supposed to be used to erase Mill Creek. More than 20,000 people were pushed out. The city promised new housing, better schools. What they got instead? Pruitt Igoe. And then nothing. They said they'd make it better. All I saw was dust and empty lots. That was a quote from a Mill Creek resident in 1964. 450 acres destroyed. And people moved to Pruitt Igoe. 40 blocks of warehouses, produce stalls, barbershops, jazz clubs, boarding houses, places where black entrepreneurs thrived, where jazz clubs were filled with Nat King Cole, Ella Fitzgerald, and Charlie Parker. Clubs like the Plantation Club, the Riviera Drew, all destroyed for a Gateway Arch and a Jefferson National Expansion Memorial Plan. Thank your civic leaders for that. Your civic leaders sold it as progress. Nearly 290 businesses were gone. The river market silenced. The land sat empty for 2 decades. Then the arch rose, an icon for tourists and a tombstone for the erased. This didn't just affect 3 areas. This affected a whole community. St. Louis is huge, and St. Louis is red hot. Homer G. Phillips Hospital opened in 1937, and it trained more black doctors and nurses than anywhere else before integration. It closed in 1979, leaving a gap in the community care still felt to this day. Vashon High School opened in 1927. It was one of the first black high schools west of the Mississippi, producing state champions and leaders before its forced relocation in 1963. The destruction of Mill Creek, the Riverfront, and the neglect of Pruitt Igoe didn't just happen. They were planned by mayors, civic planners, bond chairmen, and military officers whose names history tries to wash away. But saying their names is part of reclaiming what was lost. This isn't just a story about St. Louis. It's a blueprint for how Erasure works. here's what doesn't make sense. They keep building monuments to freedom where freedom was taken away. Because remembering isn't enough. We have to name it. We have to challenge it. And we have to make sure it never happens again. This is Michael Porter, and you've been listening to That Doesn't Make Sense, where we ask the hard questions